When I plan a trip, I don't just book a holiday. I run it like a perfectly tuned project. Every cafe, every restaurant I want to try, every attraction I want to see, every museum ticket, every booking, every train ticket, even backup plans for rainy days, are all right at my fingertips inside Obsidian. There's no frantic Google searches, no digging through my email, just total control and total freedom. And here's the thing, this isn't just for travel. This exact same setup can run your entire life. Big work projects, side hustles, even your next home renovation. Once you have it, you'll wonder how you've ever kept up without it. Today I'm going to talk through exactly how to handle projects where information is coming at you from every direction. The kind that normally leaves you overwhelmed and stressed. By the end of this video, you'll have a trusted project companion that keeps you organized, focused, and calm, because the system will remember everything for you. So what is the plan for today? Well, we're going to build everything step by step. We're going to continue with our knowledge management methodologies, which is using the daily notes first, where we create our project and then we feed in all the different notes that makes this project be completed at the end. So this is, where do I want to stay? How do I want to get there? What attractions do I want to see? What restaurants and cafes I want to visit? Those are all notes that are connected in some way to this project. We're going to show how everything interconnects. So by the end, you won't just understand how the system works, you'll want to start setting it up today. If you want to support me, I have an Obsidian Evergreen Vault, which comes pre-configured with all the templates that you need, setup that you need for journaling, for work, for basically everything in order to build your own knowledge base. So you don't have to spend months trying to set it up yourself. I also provide consulting services. I'm currently consulting for CEOs, for PhD students, for just students in general, or people who just have specific use cases and they want a professional to help them get up and running as quickly as possible. So if you are looking to accelerate your knowledge management journey, feel free to book a session. Then I also have an Obsidian course that took me the last 6 months to put together. There's a lot of people that ask for a more structured approach to learning how to use tools like Obsidian, along with the theory that I teach as well on how a knowledge management system should work. And this is the solution I came up with. The Obsidian course takes you through all the theory, all the basics, and it goes straight into the different use cases that you have. Journaling, work, studying, and it's pretty comprehensive. It's a nice way for you to work through everything you need to know in order to feel 100% comfortable with your PKM tool. And that being said, let's get back to the video. I'm planning a trip to Paris later this month, and I'm busy on my personal vault to build out everything that I need to do in order to make this travel project work. So I thought I might as well just add another guide which is related to project management for traveling. So you can see we already have project management travel as a guide. So now I'm just going to create another one. So first step is we create a project, and let's say we start to initiate the planning on the 4th of August 2024. So when we navigate to the node, and then we can just move this here. And let's say at 2200, we log some travel planning. And I like to use some emoticons. And then we'll just say log travel planning. And then this is where I would introduce the new project. So project travel to Paris 2025. And I would give it a red book to show that it's a project. And if I want, I can add a little bit of a globe there as well. But I think for now, this is fine. And here we just fill in a couple of bullet points. I am planning to travel to Paris. This will be my home base for that travel project. And then you can start to create notes. But first, let's deviate away from the daily note and create our project. So let's see, if we type in project template, we have a nice project template we can use where we have our logs and sprints. So you can see when we go to our daily notes, we logged our first sprint, our first log, and related to this project. That's why it's popping up here. And we can see the sub-projects. So let's say you want to create a sub-project for the accommodation, for the traveling, for activities that you want to do. You can create as many sub-projects as you want. But I would say for most people, they would just have this one project, and then you'll just have notes that directly relate to this project. So sub-projects, meetings, or work sessions. So for instance, if I were to create a work session, I would use an orange book to show that it's a work session, and I would put in the date. Let's just put in the date at the front. And it's 2024-08-04. I would put in this icon to show that it's a meeting or work session. I would say to show that it's a meeting or work session. I would say work session on travel planning for Paris 2025. As you can see, this log is in this breadcrumb trail here. But now we might want to deviate away, but I've seen we didn't fill in the metadata properties in our project yet. So I'm quickly going to go back. And I'm going to say that this is a project to travel to Paris 2025. And yeah, I can say on Paris or France, Paris, and on travel. And that should be good enough. So now we can go back to our daily note where we want to have a work session where we can just brainstorm some ideas instead of having all the bullet points here, which of course you can have all the bullet points here, but you don't necessarily want to. So I'm going to go away. I'm going to say meeting. Then I'll change the meeting to work session, because meetings I typically have for you with somebody else. So let's say you have a meeting with a travel agent, then that would be a meeting. But I like to make the differentiation between a work session, which is just you by yourself trying to put in work, or a meeting that would generally have participants. And I would say this is active because we're busy with it. Brainstorming everything that need to be done for the travel to travel. For the travel to travel, ladies and gentlemen. And let's try to spell brainstorming correctly. And up which project does this belong to. And you'll see an interesting thing if I put in the project travel to Paris. It will pop up here because that's how our Dataview queries work. And I'll show you how the Dataview queries behind the scenes look. So we have that filled in. So in a couple of seconds, by sheer force of magic, this should be populated here. And we might have an issue with the data view, which we'll go change. And yes, we do, because we're looking for type meeting, but it should be meeting or work session. So I'm just going to go fill that in, work session. And I'm just going to change the template as well. Travel template. And now it should be fine. So now by the sheer force of technological magic, it should still not pop up here. Okay, so this is good because we're brainstorming. We're seeing why Dataview is not working. So up is filled in correctly, but let's just go here. And we're saying and. It shouldn't be both. It should be or. And let's just go change this as well. So basically what it's saying now is the up must contain this file link, which is the project travel to Paris. So the up property of the meeting or the work session needs to contain this. And then we're saying there needs to be another condition where the tags either contains type meeting or contains type work session. So now by the sheer force of intellectual magic, if we go to reading mode, it should pop up there. Hell yeah, first try, give me a harder problem to solve. Work session, travel planning, and this is where we can just type in whatever we want. So brainstorming. And here we're going to say, well, what is the things that need to happen? We need to book travel tickets. So are we going to go by train or plane? We need to book accommodation. And we need to find out best places to stay, rates, proximity, and we want to go look at some attractions. So what attractions do we want to visit? Then food and drink, book restaurants, make food ourselves, picnic, exercise. What we're going to do for exercise, we're going to be walking a lot, but I would want to join some clubs. So running club, maybe chess club, definitely some jiu-jitsu. And I would say that this is getting there. So with these, if they are done, we have a good travel planning ready for us to go. So let's say we plan the dates and we know which dates we're going. So now we're going to book our train tickets. And we bought the train tickets. And I would say something like train tickets to Paris 2025. And I would put in something like this, Ticate. And I like the pink one. And then I'll create the note and I'll call it a new note. And tags, I would say this is type train ticket on France, Paris. So for future reference, if I want to see trains to Paris, I might want to see this. And I would say on train and on traveling. Might be interesting. These are my tickets from Amsterdam to Paris and back. And I would say this is complete. And I would say picture here of my train tickets with links and any other information. Leaving on date here. Returning on dates. So this is where I would fill in all the data that I have. And this note is basically the information that I'll use when I'm traveling out in the day and when I'm coming back. So this belongs to this project. It doesn't belong anywhere else. So the up needs to be Paris 2025. And cool thing is you'll see it pop up by the sheer force of knowledge and intellectualness. It will pop up here. So now we have something cool. We have our child notes, and the child notes is something that directly relates to this project Travel Paris 2025. And now we have the traveling details always on our homepage. We know we can always go to the child notes right here. And that is awesome. So when we go to this note, we can look at the backlinks. We can see where it was mentioned. Well, it was mentioned in this work session. So if we have any other additional information, we can always see where this note was mentioned. And that is the power of Obsidian. So we've booked our train tickets. So that's sorted. The accommodation would be something quite similar. We would say accommodation for Paris. And this is the note that we'll use once we have purchased our accommodation. And it would be something quite similar. We will say the summary, information and invoices of where and when we are staying whilst in Paris. Parisio. And tags, type Accommodation. I'll type. Yeah, you can see the type is a little bit unclear to me as to whether it should be type accommodation or type purchase. I would say type booking, but it's then also type accommodation. And then I'll say it's location France, Paris, and on France, Paris, and on accommodation. You can see there's a little bit of double entries because this note is type booking and it's type accommodation. But then you also want this to pop up in the more generic search terms, which is all your notes related to France, Paris, because this note is definitely related to France, Paris in some way, and it's related to accommodation in some way. The location just gives very like a pin drop, Google pin drop or Apple Map pin drop of where this note also relates to. So it's quite nice to see. The cool thing about this is on tags, you can see that location France Paris is also here. I wonder if you click on it. Yeah, if you click on it, you can see all the notes that have location France Paris. So let's say I look for on France Paris. You can see all the notes that I have the tag on France Paris. That's a nice way to basically see how they relate to each other. So accommodation, the up is obviously Paris 2025 because this directly relates to this note. And while I'm going through this, this is not just for traveling. This is for any project that you have. Any project would follow something similar. You have notes that directly belong to it. You have meetings or work sessions in which you drive the project forward. You have sub-projects that you can add, but the child notes, related notes, the meeting notes, like it's all quite similar between different projects. But I'm doing some travel planning, so this is what you get. So we have this pop-up. So you can see we haven't filled in anything yet. And something else that we might want to add is the status, where we say it is active. And if you go back and we say train tickets, this is complete. We might want to add another column here to see if these child notes are still in progress or not. And the way that we do it is we just add the status column here in the Dataview. So we're retrieving a table, and don't worry about without ID. And these are the 4 columns that we want to return. So we go to reading mode, you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, a session, created, status, summary. And I might want to change status session to note, and let's change that as well. That just changes the column name. So now you have note instead of session. So note, created, status, summary. Quickly, we want to change it for the other notes as well. So note, note. And I'm going to change this to project instead of sub-project. And I want to clean this up to say logs instead of sprints. And yeah, let's change some of this as well. Active, and we can take this out. Note, note, and note. Happiness. So we've added the status, which is quite nice. So you can see this is still active, meaning we haven't completed this yet. There's still something that need to be done. And the next part is basically finding out or gathering information on where I want to stay. And my normal approach is going to Reddit, going to YouTube, finding a YouTuber that I like, finding a blog article that I like, which a Parisian, a person living in Paris, or somebody that's well-traveled, gives some options of where they recommend people to stay. So I don't want to stay in the touristy bits. I really want to avoid tourist traps. So this is going to be some research, and that's also the fun part of travel planning, where without the system, nobody needs an external brain or a knowledge management system like Obsidian. You don't need it. But it does make life so much easier. So I have a lot of people that I tried when I first started with Obsidian. I tried to convince them that a system like this, just organizational capabilities of this, will make your life so much easier all you need to do is just take a week of your life and you just simplify every facet of your life for the rest of your life, for basically your eternity, for basically your lifespan. You just lower the difficulty threshold of everything else in your life. But yeah, for some people, the hurdle is just too high and they are getting by depending on their meat computer. But I would say that you watching this video, you have such a huge advantage over everybody else. And I commend you for it. Because it's one of those unteachable lessons. You can try to convey how valuable it is, but until they do it, they won't recognize how valuable the system is. So I'm glad you made your way here. Listen to my terrible voice. Okay, so accommodation for Paris. So let's say that today this is what we got out of it. And we might want to log another sprint here. So log travel planning. And we just say on project Paris, because we want to keep this just a brain dump of what we need to do. We also want that to pop up here. And it does. So here we can see we created this work session, but then from this work session, we can also pull through this information if we want to pull it through. Because if we look at this, we can just hover over and see, oh, here's the brain dump, but it might not be that obvious. So sometimes I just want to pull out the information here as well, so I can easily see, oh yeah, this is my to do. Or even better, you can create another node, which you just say, brainstorming for Paris 2024 trip. And then you'll copy paste all of this into this node and you call it a node. The up is obviously going to be the project Paris 2025. The tags is going to be on Paris, on travel planning, and just offloading what needs to be done for my upcoming trip. And status is, let's just say complete. So what we have now is this node will appear under the child nodes or the children nodes because we have the up property project travel 2025. So let's see. Brainstorming for Paris 2025 trip. So now instead of having all of this here, you can take it out and you can just go to this brainstorming and you can carry on building on this brainstorming throughout the different work sessions that you have. Because every couple of days when you work on this, you might want to create this in order to basically just write out everything that you're doing that day with regards to this travel project that you are busy with. And that just makes everything clear because then all of these notes were created in this work session, but they also get sent to their respective places, which is the child notes and the meeting notes. Now it's a couple of days later and we want to do another sprint. We want to do some effort towards our project travel to Paris 2025 project. And this is where Obsidian becomes really fun, where work doesn't feel like work anymore. It becomes play because you're building a knowledge base for future you as well. The knowledge that you capture here for this one project can then be reused in other places. And I'll show you what I mean. So let's say it is 2200 hours and we are now going to do some effort towards this project. So we put it in the task format. And again, this is just how we send individual pieces of information around in our vault. So you can see with our logs section in our project, these are individual pieces of information within a specific note, which is this one is the meeting note and this one is the daily note. This individual piece of information that is being sent here. This is an individual piece of information within a note, within our daily note that's being sent here. So if you just click on this, you can see that this piece of information within our daily note 2024-08-04, and if we just close everything down, we can see on our log, this is a single piece of information that we managed to send here automatically. Now we want to do something similar, where we want to say, well, we're doing some type of sprint, log, travel planning, and we're going to say it's on project travel to Paris 2025. Now, within a couple of seconds, you'll see it pop up here at the top. It's automatically being detected by means of putting it in this task format, which tells Obsidian that, hey, we might want to retrieve everything after this format. And what this project is specifically looking for is this title, this note that we're currently on. So if we again go to the editing mode, you can see what is it looking for. Well, it's looking for where the text, meaning the task, and where the text, so everything after the task format, contains this file name, and it automatically detects this file that I'm currently on. What is its name? Is it being detected in the text? And it is. And that's why this guy is being retrieved automatically to our log section. So there we have it. And today we are interested in finding restaurants and cafes. And cafes in Paris that we want to go to. And this is where the fun starts. My normal approach is going to Reddit, going to Google, going to ChatGPT, going to YouTube, and just looking at content and seeing what resonates with me. So I feel the more directed you are with things, like finding a YouTube channel that you really enjoy and people going to different restaurants and seeing what they have to eat. When you finally go to that place, you already have a talking point, you already have some expectations, you already have something to look forward to. So we are just going to go look at YouTube and see if we can find any restaurants or cafes that we want to go to. We go to the U of Tube and we are going to type in food, Paris, restaurants. Let's see if something fun pops up. And a channel that I recently found was this guy. If you haven't seen this guy yet, it's fantastic. They have a very unique way of finding cool restaurants, and they have a video for every major city. I live in Amsterdam, and I watched the video of Top Jaw, and I managed to find very cute brunch and restaurant places that I would not have otherwise. So I really liked the format. And this is where I would click on the video and I'll go through it and I'll see if anything stands out to me. So this is a restaurant called Frenchie. And when I see something like this, immediately my brain, my subconscious is screaming, yes, I want to eat that. And I would like to go there because I won't be disappointed. And it's also a new area of Paris that I'll get to explore. So let's say Frenchie. Frenchie is one of the places they recommended to go eat for lunch. And that's something I want to track. So how would I log this information in my system in such a way where I manage to capture this information for any time I am planning on going to Paris again, that I can find it somewhere, as well as the source of where I found it and just logging it when I'm actually there. The first step is just copying the video title. Then I go back to my Obsidian and I'll create a source note. You might wonder, what is a source note? A source note is just where you found something. And I like to create an individual page for every source. And you'll see later on how useful this can become. So I'll type source YouTube. So just to make it easier for myself in the future to spot what is a source note. I always start with an S and then where did I find it? YouTube. If it's Reddit, I'll say Reddit. If it's an article, I'll say article. Then I'll put in the note name. And then I do a little bit of a dash, and I think this needs to be excluded because otherwise Obsidian won't recognize the name. And I'll say which YouTube channel that I found it on, if it's an article, who was the author. And here we have our source node. Then I'll deviate away from the daily node and I'll create this source node. So we don't have a source node yet. So we can just go information, and tags need to be type source. And here I'll say YouTube. So you can see I've created other source nodes in the past. I decided to move away from source note book, source note article, source note YouTube to just type source YouTube because it's shorter and it still makes sense to me. So I'm opting for the shorter form. And now I'll give some context. So another tag that we use, location, and then I'll use France, Paris to show, okay, where is this source node located? The information that it's about, where is it located? So I can find, when I search for location, France, Paris in the future, that this source pops up because I would want to see it if I ever search for it. And then I'll do something similar on France, Paris to give the on context. So this is just general tagging for future you. And I'll say it's on restaurants and on dining. The related, I'll say this is, if you want to, top jaw YouTube, top jaw food video YouTube. You can be more creative with your naming convention, but this would make sense to me. And I'll just say a video showing the best places in Paris to eat, dine, grab a coffee, cocktail. And status, I'm going to say complete because it's not going to be, well, it might be a good time to just talk through this as well. So I've basically have 4 criteria for status of any node. For projects, this is typically active. For nodes that I'm still working on, this is typically active. If it's a node that I feel is in such a condition where it is done, I won't make a lot of changes, or I'll rarely make changes to the node, it's complete. So for instance, if I create a restaurant node, after I've created it and filled in the necessary information like the links, the link to the website, the sources, the summary, the tags, I'll say it's complete because I'm quite likely to not change this in the future. Active is where I still need to provide more information. Pending is where you just basically created the placeholder. And archive is something that is not useful, you don't think will be useful now or in the future anymore. So the train tickets to Paris, after the project, I'll say this is archived. After I use the booking information of where I'm going to stay in Paris, that would also be archived because I don't think I'll use it in the future. Or you can say complete. Use your judgment. And this is where we'd like to just copy the URL. So you'll see in the source URL, and I just like to paste it here as well. You can, if you want to be fancy, you can say copy embed code, and then you can come back to Obsidian, you can just paste it. Now if you go to reading mode, you have the video in your Obsidian. Okay, so now the source node is done. I'm happy with it. So now we can move away from the source node and back to our daily node. And from the daily node, from this video, we'll start creating the nodes. So Frenchie, this little bit here, that is a restaurant that I would like to visit. And that's where I would create a restaurant node. And I just use this icon to show that it's a restaurant. And I would say Frenchie, I would just say Paris restaurant. and I'll deviate away from the daily notes. And hopefully you're picking up the pattern of how we take notes. Is we fill it in the daily note, or if we fill in like the previous day where we created a work session, we'll fill in the work session and we'll deviate away from the work session. We'll deviate away from the daily note to go create that note. And here we'll just say new note. And we'll just say this is a type restaurant and location France, Paris. And let's just go with on restaurants on France, Paris. A little bit of double work, but I do think it's necessary to be able to retrieve it in the future. A cool restaurant I want to try in Paris. And the status, complete. The source. Now, this is the cool thing, is you don't need to fill in, you can fill in two sources, multiple sources, but you always want to link back to the source node. And this is where the source node comes in handy, where you can just go to source, YouTube Paris Best Restaurants. And now you will always have the source of where you first encountered Frenchie, the restaurant. And maybe I'll do something like this as well. I'll add a Paris flag just to create more context. Now, if I see a plate and a Parisian French flag, I kind of know what this note is about. It's quite nice. And if I really want to, I can copy the timestamp. So copy video at current timestamp, and I can also put it in the source, and then I'll typically put it here as well. A cool thing that I like to do as well for when I actually go and try these recipes is to have something like this. So you see in our project note, we have logs. I'll just create a log, and at the bottom, I also think it's quite valuable to have linked mentions. So what does this do? You can see on the logs we don't have anything because we haven't filled in any information for logs. You can see that this one is not being pulled up because it's not in the first line, which is a requirement of this log format. But let's say we want to see the travel planning as well, not the actual times we went to this place, but even where it was mentioned. You can put it in the first line, the name of this file, and then it should pop up here. And it does. So there's some flexibility. But at the bottom, you can see that it does show all the notes where this note was mentioned. And I kind of want to create that template as well. So let's just create a new note template with log and linked mentions. Now it's in the templates folder. Let's quickly smooth this here and close this, just make it more viewable. Let's quickly take this. Let's go back to new note template. We paste it, and we can go to this, and we can copy these bad boys, and here we can paste these. So now we have a template, and let's just make the status active as a default for now. Now we have new notes that we can easily create with this data view of logs and linked mentions, which I think is quite useful. So let's close these. And yeah, so Frenchie is up and running. So we have our first restaurant. Oh yeah. Now, how will this be pulled through to our project? Well, you can always put unrelated. I wouldn't say it's up because this restaurant does not belong to the project, but it is related. So when we come back to our project, we do want to see those notes somewhere. And I like to see them under related notes. So how do we manage that? Let's pull this to the side. And let's say related is project France. So let's go to related notes, and there we have it. Another thing that we might want to add is just the tags to see what this note is about, because other related notes might not be restaurants. It might be travel tips, or how to get cheap flights, how to get cheap train tickets, or how to avoid being pickpocketed in European countries. So we just want to add tags. And now if we go back, we can see, top restaurants, location, on restaurants, on France, Paris. So this gives us all the information that we need. And now when we're actually doing our day planning, which would go under child notes, we can say day 1, Paris. We can then pull in Frenchie as a note to, this is a restaurant we're going to try on day 1. And then we have a cafe that we want to try on day 3. And this is how these notes get used in the child notes. So I quickly want to change the project travel template to include the tag section as well. So let's go to project travel project template. And let's go add tags. This is just for future travel projects, but it's a little bit easier to understand. And we can also just add another tag type, travel project. Okay, we have created our first restaurant. That is awesome, because now in the future, if we want to see our restaurants, we can create a base or Dataview query to pull in all the notes that have type restaurant and location France, Paris. And then you should see the whole database of notes related to the tag that you're searching for. So let's quickly go create another restaurant or cafe. So here we, not on this day, we go back to the calendar, we go back to the 6th. Here we had Frenchie Paris restaurant, but let's go to the next one. So that's Frenchie, Chop Shop Love, Dumbo. Dumbo looks like a burger place. Bar Naval, so this is a cocktail bar. Rouge Public House. I think there was a cafe at the beginning. Everything is food related, so that makes sense. There's another video where they go through cafes as well, but let's go to Bar Naval, which is a cocktail bar. Well, let's check it out. Ah, yes. This is the cocktail bar that does molecular science. So that, I'm not really a drinker, but that is interesting to me. I might want to check it out, and I definitely want to keep it on a list of future Paris attractions. So we can get the name Bar Naval, and here we can create it. So this is a cocktail. Let's see if there's a cocktail. Yes, there is. Great. And Parisian Bar Naval. Perfect. And you need to decide on what naming convention you want. I'm not sure which one I prefer. I think I actually prefer Paris being at the back. But it doesn't really matter because you have the French flag. So I think I'm just going to go for this format. Restaurant Paris. Cocktail bar Paris. And it's nice because I changed its name. It updates everywhere in your vault so that you don't need to worry about naming that much because you can always change it. So new note template, summary, cocktail bar with molecular science backed tailcocks that I want to try out. The status, complete tags, type, bar, and you can add multiple types. I'm going to say cocktail bar. So if in the future I'm looking for bars in Paris, cocktail bar might not come up because it's more specific. So I'll just put both types so that I have a wider net of capturing this note or retrieving this note in the future again. And I want to say location, France, Paris. I would say on France, Paris. And I would say on cocktail bar. And I would say on bar. And that should be good. The source is our source node, best restaurants, and we can also include the time. Copy video at current time if you want to be more specific. And I'll put this here as well. But now we kind of made a mistake because we want this logs and this linked mentions as well. So maybe I'll just copy all of this, I'll delete it, and then I'll activate node template with log and linked mentions. And then I'll just paste this over. So now we can see that we have no logs because this wasn't in the first line of the task line. So it's not being returned here. And this is the Dataview code for this again. We're looking for where the task, and the text, everything just after the task contains this file name, which is bar naval, and there is no bar naval here. That's why it's not being returned here. But if we then copy paste it here, it will pop up here. But I don't think that's necessary. But for linked mentions, you can see when you first encountered this node. So I think this is pretty damn neat. Related, I'll just put in the YouTube, and I'll also put this is related to project Travel Paris 2025, and here I'll just say YouTube as well. So now if we go to this guy, see we're deviating where we're jumping around, but that's fine. And I'll just like to add this to say that it's a note, and let's also just do note template with logged and linked mentions. And this is a YouTube channel showing the best places to eat and drink in popular cities. Tags, type, YouTube, channel, on food, on restaurants. And source, you might want to add the source here as well. And I'll say complete. So now we have a nice little note, and here you can see all the times top jaw has been mentioned. So it's a quick way to just check your backlinks, but in a more viewable fashion. So let's see what we have done so far. So if you go back to our travel planning, we have a lot of different sections. We have our logs, which just shows every single time when we worked on this project. So on the 4th, we created the project and we created a work session. In that work session, we decided to pull in the brainstorming activities as well. And then on the 6th, we filled in some restaurants that we want to try. For sub-projects, we don't have any sub-projects, but again, you can create sub-projects for Paris 2025, train traveling project, Paris 2025, accommodation, Paris 2025, attraction. So you can create a bunch of sub-projects, but we won't get into that. The meetings, the work sessions, child notes directly related to this project. So the accommodation, the train tickets that you bought, and now related notes are notes that is related to this note but doesn't belong to it. But notes that we could possibly want to use again in the future. So this is tied to this project. But we're creating a lot of notes that is not directly related to this project. It's also related to just Paris in general. It's related to bars and restaurants in general. And that's where the base functionality comes in quite handy. I'm just going to show you how to create a base, which is basically just a table that returns all notes with a specific criteria. So let's say we're going to call this Paris. And we created a note. So we don't want to create a note. So I'm just going to delete this file. And we're going to call this base. We want a new base in the bases folder. And we're going to call this Paris. And let's call the first table. Let's configure this table and we call it Paris food. Why not? We can be more specific, like Paris food, Paris cocktail bars, Paris bars. But let's just start with food. We want to retrieve anything that is food related in Paris. First thing we want to do is we want to apply a filter. And the filter is tags where it contains, and let's say on Paris. Let's just see what on Paris brings back. And it doesn't return back anything because we're looking for on France, Paris, the Douai. So now we have a list of everything that has a tag on France, Paris. And now we can start to just decide what columns we want to see. So we obviously have the node name. We probably want to see the creator date. We would like to see the summary. We would like to see the tags. And this is giving us a good idea of everything we want to return. But let's say we only want to see the food related nodes. We can change the contains to on France, Paris. And we can do another tags where it contains. I can change this to contains as well. And we'll say this is on food. I think that we're only going to have one on restaurants. So all of the following is true. So we have the source node that's being returned and the restaurant. So you can see the cocktail bar is not being pulled up here because we don't have on food. We only have on cocktail bar, but let's say we say this is kind of food. Now if we go back to the Paris, Bar Naval should pop up here, but it doesn't. So let's quickly close it and reopen it. And let's go, because we said on restaurants, not on food. But now the other restaurants is not being pulled up. So this is where you need to be a little bit more specific about what tags you want to return. So I would say, let's say it's delete this and we add a filter group where any of the following is true. So now we have two conditions and this is going to have multiple conditions. So the first one is where it's on France, Paris. And then this one is going to be on tags contains on bar. And let's add another filter where tags contains on restaurant. And there we have it. There we have our base. Now the cool thing is you can always create a new node, which I'm going to delete. I just want to show you how it would work. Paris, restaurant, food, and drinks. And let's say this is a home node, but no, we can't just pull in that specific base, Paris base, and you can see the Paris food. And now we can add different tables to that base, but we just have the one table, which is this. And here you can see that base being returned. We've completed all the travel planning. We have all the places that we want to go to. We have our accommodation booked. We have our transport booked. Now it's time to actually go to the travel destination. And something that you can do is have a travel journal. And every day you can see what you actually did during that travel adventure. So on our project, Travel to Paris 2025, we have all of the information. We have logs on how we completed everything. We have sub-projects if we chose to have sub-projects. We have the meetings. So this might include you had to get a visa and you had a meeting where you had to go into the visa building and you had a meeting in order to request a visa. That's where you would add a meeting. Child notes that's directly related to this project. And this is where we would want to populate our travel journal. So let's say we are going to Paris in 2025 on a specific day. We want to add the travel journal here, or you can adapt the Dataview code where you'll just say something like travel journal. You'll paste it. And here we want to have something like travel journal, and we can take out this, and actually we want where the up field contains this file link that represents that it's a child node of this project, and we want to make sure it contains, not does not contain. That's where we're going to take out this exclamation mark, because exclamation mark just means that it should not contain, but we want it to contain the words type travel journal. So we can choose where we want this to appear. For now, it will appear in both child nodes and travel journal nodes, and you can choose which one makes more sense to you. Let's say we go and actually do the travel to Paris in January, the 5th of January. And that's when we will create the daily note, because the daily note is where we start with everything. It's our jump off point for everything that we do. And we might fill in all of these normal journaling information. And under log pages, this is where we want to start filling in what we're doing that day. So this is the day where we travel. So we have log travel journal, and we might create a new travel note, which is 2025-01-05, day 1 in Paris, traveling and accommodation arrival. So you can give any name as long as you have the date at the beginning. And then we might want to give something like this. Any emoticon or icon that you think is representative of a travel journal. So on this day, we might go into it and we can create a new note, but you can also create a new template if you don't want to type out the tags every single time. But I don't think it's necessary just yet. On the up, what parent does this note belong to? Well, it belongs to our travel to Paris 2025. So we'll just say up, travel to Paris 2025, type travel journal, and today we traveled to Paris via train and arrived at our accommodation and went to a cute bar. And for some reason I keep on forgetting the double M. Status, let's say complete, because it's going to be completed afterwards. And here we might include any information that we would want to use on the day. So for me, I would probably want to put our travel information here for easy access, or you can just go to the project, but the train tickets to Paris. And we might want to put the accommodation here as well, just for easy reference. But again, you don't have to do this because you can just go to the project and you can go find it there. And here we can have our travel log. Oh, just notes. Whatever. First day in Parisio. So at 8 a.m. traveled to Paris. Train ride was fun. At 1300 arrived at the accommodation, and at 1900, let's say we went to a specific bar. And here we put it into the log/task format, where we want to send something somewhere else, and the place that we want to send it to might be the Bar Naval. So we can say log social drinks, and let's put a cocktail. And went to Bar Naval. Such a cool place. Really enjoyed the vibe. Excellent cocktails. recommend to others. So this is where we might want to put in some pictures of that specific day, and you might want to put it on the day note itself. So this is also where you maybe create the same pictures, because this note will be picked up to your weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly note, so that you can see the pictures. But you might just want to copy paste the pictures of that specific day here as well at the top. So pictures of the day, paste them here. So let's quickly see where this note is going to go to. Well, where do we expect it to go to? We logged this on our daily page, and we might want to fill in other things that's not travel related. But this note itself, the travel journal note, we expect it to appear under the travel journal or the child notes, because it's also a child note. And for every day, let's say you go for 7 days, you would fill in a travel journal that in the future, if you want to reminisce or you want to see what you've done every single day, like you went to different museums, you went to different restaurants, you went to different attractions, you went to a festival. It's nice to walk through your holiday in such a format that you can easily see what you've done every day, because you might want to revisit it next time when you go to Paris. So that's just the logical place for you to retrieve that information. You might, if you don't want to create a separate note, but just do it on your daily note, because this is technically the same thing that's going to happen here. You might as well just add on your daily note under tags. You might put type daily travel journal. And now this daily note becomes a travel journal as well. And then you don't have to create this, which is quite nice, because now if you go back to the project, you can see that the up is not specified yet. So we might want to add another up property here, and that might be good to do. So let's say we put it here, and you have to put under your daily journal, you need to put the travel to Paris 2025 as well for this note to be sent to this project. And now we can see that it does pop up here. But for me, I like to keep it a little bit separate. So I am just going to delete it, but you can see how it works. So we separated this, we put in a bunch of pictures, we have the things that we've done today, and we can have a summary at the end. And now whenever in the future, we can go through all our travel journal days. And which is nice, when you separate it from your daily note, you can put all the things that you want to be displayed on that note itself. Because on your daily note, you fill in other information as well, like your sleep hours, sleep rating, a lot of metadata. You put in the food as well. You might have other logs, like remember to take feet pictures that you don't necessarily want to be sent to your project Travel to Paris 2025. That's why we separate it. That is quite a nice thing to do, is just to jump away from your daily journal to go to your travel journal, and then you fill in everything here. So let's do one more example where we then go to the next day, the 6th, and we do the same. And we say log travel journal, and we do the same thing. So let's maybe use this one. Let's change this to the right date, and we say day 2 in Paris. And today was a museum day. Same thing. We go to the note. We use the new note template, which just gives us this metadata. And again, you might want to add a travel journal template. But yeah, that's something I've done in my personal vault, but you might as well do it here as well. And we say type travel journal. And we can say location France, Paris, if you like as well. Just be consistent to have this pop up in the future. And we might want to do this for the previous day as well. And today was on museum. No, it was on traveling. So this would be on museum. the day we went to fancy schmancy museums. Status complete. And yeah, we can have the same thing. We can say second day in Parisio, and at 9 we can indicate that we went to a specific bakery. So let's say log coffee, if it was by yourself, went to, and here you can fill in a specific cafe. Coffee, Cafe Paris, Paradiso, for excellent coffee and confectionery. Multiple. At 1300 we went to the Louvre, so we can say log culture museum, and here's where we will create the Louvre. The Louvre, not sure how you pronounce it. And let's take historical building as attractions. I like this one. And we can just say the Louvre. The Louvre Museum Paris as the note. And here I have the URL. So let's go create that note. And if you're going to a lot of museums, you might as well create a museum template where you would just fill in type, museum, location, France, Paris, on France, Paris, on museum. And you can just say a museum in Paris, and the up doesn't really relate to anything. Source, this is where we'll put in the, actually, I'm just going to copy all of this because we want to use the template with the log template. New node template with the log because we want to see every time we visited this museum. And now we can just copy paste. So now we have all of this. Again, status complete. And now if you go to the logs, we can see every time when we went to visit that museum. So a year from now, we might go to Paris again, and we might want to show somebody else that museum, or we would want to go to that museum again because we didn't get a chance to see everything. So here's where we would have all the logs of every single time we visited that place, or mentioned that place would be in the linked mentions. And then at 1900, we can say that we had a log dinner at, and we chose to go to Frenchy. So Frenchy Restaurant Paris, where we had a wonderful lamb pasta or something like that. But this is how everything is starting to fit into each other. So you can see that this day 2 in Paris is not showing up under our child notes or travel journal because we didn't fill in the up. So that's the most important thing. Project Paris, as soon as we fill that in, it should pop up here, and it does. So this is how you can go through all your different days and have a quick summary of what you did. And whenever you think of, oh, I remember going to the restaurant called Frenchy, and that's the only thing you remembered, you can open this up. And here you can see, oh, this is where we did some travel planning as to what restaurants or bars we want to go to. And then this is when we actually went to it, and we can see our review of what we ate at that restaurant. And in the future, if we go again, we can see that last time we ate this, we went with these people. And it's just a nice way to reminisce and keep track of everything that you do. So that's how the travel journal works. And that's how everything fits in together with just a relatively simple structure. You can see how Obsidian helps you connect all your different notes, all your travel planning, all your adventures. It's not a once-off. You are building a database for yourself, which is curated by you, which makes it so much more valuable because a year from now, you can go back to the previous year's journal note. You can see, oh, this is the day that I went to Paris. What did I do? And you can go through the journal note. You can see, yes, I remember. And the people that you went with, you can just send them a picture and saying, hey, do you remember like last year we went to this place? How awesome is that? We should plan another trip. So that's typically how I use it. But not just that. If somebody then asks for, hey, I saw that you had quite a lot of fun in Paris. Do you mind sending some tips? Well, you can basically just send them your travel journals. You can show them what you did every day, or you can just go review it and send them a couple of nice places. And that is the travel setup. You can see it's a project, but this is not just for travel planning. This is for any project that you have. Here we can see that we have all our information, and something else that we might want to add is if we go back to the daily notes, you can also say that this is on project Paris. And as soon as we put this in, you can see that this is going to pop up under the log section as well. So then you can see, oh, yes, this is the first day in Paris. So for the next day, and we'll just use the journals plugin to have this sweet dashboard. We do the same thing because we also want this log, because this is some effort towards finishing this project. You can just put in project Paris again, and then that would allow this little log, this little bit of information to be pushed through to the project. And by the end, when we're back in Amsterdam or your home, you can finally change this to complete, because this whole project is complete. And with the logs, you can see this is when I started the travel planning. This is when I had some brainstorming. This is when I looked at bars, restaurants, museums that I want to go to. And this is when I actually arrived in Paris, when I actually did some things. I can go to that note. I can quickly run through to see what I did, day 2, day 3, day 4. And then you'll have arrived back in Amsterdam. What an awesome trip. And now you have all of these memories captured for future you. So again, this is the only travel setup that you need. Once you understand how to capture information in a way where it's allowed to be resurfaced, like the Frenchy restaurant, this is not a static document anymore. This document is alive. You allow this note to be resurfaced in the future. You will never forget a good restaurant ever again. And you add a little bit of value to your life, a little bit of spice to your life by remembering cool experiences, cool places that you can share with other people. And by other people, it can also be future you, which is completely different from you a year ago. So I hope you see the value, and until next time, cheerio. I know I said goodbye, but I thought about some base functionality that we might want to add. And here we have the Paris base. And we've just logged everything. We just came back. But in the future, we might want to revisit the Paris database. And here we already have Paris food, but we might want to break it up into different sections. So we might want museums, we might want restaurants, we might want bars. And the way to quickly do it is by either creating a new view in this Paris base, because here we already have Paris food, but let's just duplicate this existing view. We call this Paris museums. And you can see that it's obviously not pulling in museums. So we want to change some filters. So on France, Paris, not necessarily. We want location, France, Paris. And we want type museum. And then we can delete this one. Location. And it is case sensitive. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I'm pretty sure they'll change it with future base releases. But just know that this is probably case sensitive, which means that if you change this to a capital F, it probably won't work. So in the future, it might change a little bit. Is not exactly. This is not exactly, might change it to not be case sensitive. So this is almost like a fuzzy lookup. This is not exactly, which might be useful if you just want to make sure that you capture everything if you by mistake put a capital F or not a capital F. So maybe use this is not exactly. And then we have type museum. So now we will have a database with all our museums. But let's say we want to add something else. So duplicate this view. What view do we want? We want Paris bars. And we press enter, and we're going to go back to the filters. Location France Paris is fine, and we say type bar. And we might want to do this as well. It's not maybe this is not a good thing to use. Is empty, contains type bar. And let's see if we change this to a capital B. Then it changes. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit tricky. So this is something that will probably change in future releases. So let's just stick to contains and just make sure that you fill in the tags correctly. So a good way to make sure that you get everything correct is just make sure you keep everything lowercase, I guess. And yeah, now we have bars, and we can add as many things as we want. So we can say Paris attractions, which you would have the Eiffel Tower, you would have different museums, you would have cool parks that you want to go visit. So you can add as many bases as you want. But the point is, all of these bases are captured within this one base, which means that if we go to Paris, restaurants, foods, and drink, you can see we have Paris food here. But we might want to just add, let's change this to Paris home. And here we just want to add the Paris base, which we have. And you can go through the different tables that you have created easily enough. The cool thing is, if you don't want to go through this navigation, you can simplify the visual experience just a little bit by saying Paris food, and then this one is going to be Paris bars, and this one is going to be Paris museums. And then what you can do is you can take this base, and let's say for bars, you can press hashtag at the end, and then you can choose which table you want to show. So for this one, it's bars, and let's just copy paste. And this one is museums. And then this one will be food. So now if you go to reading mode, you can see all of them being displayed by themselves. The nice thing with this base functionality is you can go to any one of these tables because they're hosted as part of the Paris base. You can switch between them. But now there's a little bit of a misunderstanding, maybe, where it's Paris bars and then it says Paris museums. But fret not, because if you close it and you reopen it, it reverts back to the one that you specified, which is Paris bars and Paris bars. But it is nice for just quick navigation. So if you are on a page where it just says Paris food, but for some reason you quickly want to check, but what bars did I go to? You can quickly change it. And then if you exit it and you reopen it, it reverts back to the normal one. So there's a lot of changes still happening to base. It's not released to public yet, but I am encouraging all the people I'm consulting for to just cough up the €25 and buy the Catalyst license, the Obsidian Catalyst license, which allows you to try out this new functionality. And you'll see with the editor or general receive early access versions, you can only switch this on when you have the Catalyst license. And I would say it's completely worth it. We don't know when base is going to be out. There's still a lot of changes happening to base, but I would say it is very useful to have this functionality already and start getting used to it. And for any future releases of very cool functionality, you don't have to wait months before you can use it. Okay, that's about it.